What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I'd like to give you guys my thoughts on the Falcons' final preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for your continued support. Continuing to share out my content on all the social media platforms. If you'd like to follow your boy on Twitter and Instagram, you can follow me at JewTalkSports. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can donate to my Cash App, which is the $ JewTalkSports. And if you'd like to be a part of my JewTalkSports membership, you can hit that join tab here on the channel as well. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So as I mentioned in today's video, I do want to give my thoughts on the Falcons' final preseason game that took place last night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers did win the game 24-0. In this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers did play their starters versus our second and third string players. And I really think that Arthur Smith did make the right decision to bench the starters in this game because the regular season, is about 2 weeks away against the Carolina Panthers. I think we did the right thing by benching our starters because we had some players that's been nicked up in the first 2 preseason games, and we've had guys that got nicked up during training camp. I really think at this point, you don't want to enter into the season or take a chance with someone getting injured in the final preseason game. You want to give those players as much time to heal and rest before the season starts. Because our first game is against the Carolina Panthers, which is a divisional game. We know that those division games, those NFC South games, are crucial as far as making the playoffs. If you win your division, you will make the playoffs and you will get a home playoff game. So starting off the season strong is huge for this Atlanta Falcons team. We definitely want to start off the week 1-0 against the Panthers. So I think we did the correct thing in this game to bench the starters. Now, in this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers did dominate in the first half. When their ones was out there against our 2s and 3s, they really dominated all facets of the game. Offense, defense, special teams. They dominated in the trenches. They made our offensive line look really, really bad. They made our defensive line looked pretty bad as well in those first couple drives. In the first quarter, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens and those guys, Najee Harris, they pretty much had their way. And the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt and company, pretty much had their way with our offensive line and had their way with our second team offense. So with that being said, I really feel like Arthur Smith and his coaching staff used this game to weed out or kind of give these guys the last chance to make this 53-man roster. Those guys that were on the bubble, they wanted to give those guys as many chances as they possibly can, as many reps as they can before they have to cut down to that 53-man roster. And it was about 5 or 6 guys that stood out to me in this game that I was watching closely in this game because it was guys that I thought that were on the bubble. The first position that I was watching closely, and I mentioned this when we went live on Wednesday night, I was watching that wide receiver battle between Josh Ali and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And personally, I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside kind of outperformed Josh Ali. Even though Josh Ali has been neck and neck with him as far as making plays, I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside made a couple more plays over Josh Ali during these preseason games. But I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those guys make the roster. But personally, if it was up to me, I think that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will make this 53-man roster over Josh Ali. So he was a guy that made plays in this game, this final game. But he's made plays all throughout this preseason and that training camp. And I do think that he may get that last wide receiver spot on this team. He did get a little bit banged up at the end of the game, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, but I really think that he probably will be the guy that edges out Josh Ali for that last 53-man roster spot as far as the wide receivers go. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we know DeMarco Hellams is a guy that's made plays from start to finish at training camp and through all of these preseason games. He had 2 interceptions. He's made plays on special teams as well. Yesterday, he saved a punt return from going back to the house. He had to basically saved the kid Austin for the Pittsburgh Steelers was getting ready to return it for a touchdown, and DeMarco Hellams came up with a key tackle. But he's made plays, whether it's been on special teams, whether it's been on defense. He's been one of those guys that stood out all training camp and stood out during all these preseason games. So I definitely think he's a guy that definitely will make the 53-man roster as well. Another guy that was on the bubble, or another position group that I was watching, was the running back position. The 2 guys that was going neck and neck pretty much all training camp and preseason was Godwin Mbikwe and Carlos Washington Jr. And I really think in this game, that fumble that Carlos Washington Jr. had in the red zone in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I really think that was kind of like his final straw as far as possibly making this team. I do think that Godwin Mbikwe already kind of had the coach's eye, because he's a guy that can return punts and also return kickoff returns. And if you notice, last night they didn't have Godwin Mbikwe returning kicks. They had Sexton returning punts and returning kickoffs pretty much during the game, because they wanted to see what other guys can do. I think they also allowed Xavier Malone at one point to go back and catch a punt or return a kick as well, because they were kind of having a competition. But I think Godwin Mbikwe will be the guy that'll get that final running back position for Atlanta Falcons, because he's a guy that's balled. Since he's been picked up by the team, he balled in pretty much all of the preseason games, and he didn't make any mistakes. He didn't, as far as fumbles, he didn't fumble the ball. Of course, every player makes a mistake at some point, but he didn't have any crucial turnovers. And I really think that fumble really solidified Carlos Washington not making the 53-man roster. Could he be a guy to be on the practice squad? Possibly. But I definitely think Godwin Mbikwe will end up making a 53-man roster. So those were pretty much the guys that I think that were on the bubble that kind of proved that they deserve to be on the team. Last but not least, on the defensive line, Big Jelly, Justin Ellis, the veteran defensive tackle that we brought in. He's been a guy since we brought in that's made plays as well. And I do think that he'll be one of those guys on that defensive line that will make this roster as well. He's been a guy that's been in the league for about 8 to 10 years. So he's a veteran guy who's played on a number of teams. But I definitely think every time he gets out there, he makes plays. In the Cincinnati game, he had a sack. In this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had a tackle for loss where he pretty much blew up the running back in the backfield, blew up the interior of the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. But anytime Big Jelly is out there, Justin Ellis, he's always out there wreaking havoc and basically pushing the pocket. So I definitely think with his size of him being a guy that's 300 plus pounds, he will be a guy that's going to be on this 53-man roster and make the cut to be one of the last guys that make it on that loaded defensive line. But with that being said, you guys let me know what you think of this final preseason game. Like I said, I wasn't too worried about the Falcons winning or losing this game. I really feel like this game was an assessment for those guys that were on the bubble. And I think the guys that played in this game, pretty much the same guys that's been balling out during the first 2 preseason games are the guys who stood out again in this last preseason game. But I definitely think that the guys that I mentioned will make this 53-man roster. But with that being said, you guys give me your thoughts on the last preseason game and which players you think may make this 53-man roster. But as always, Falcons Nation, I have a lot more content coming for you guys. Be blessed. As always, peace.